Perfect. All right, we're live. Thank you everybody who's watching, watching the replay, watching the live. I am Michael Ross. Feel like I have a lot of names. I am I really do. I really do. And then at home they call me something different. I'm a software engineer at Tempo, and I have the privilege of having Jamie, who's one of the co-founders and CEO of Convex. Jamie, thank you so much for joining me this lovely Thursday.
Yeah, happy to be here. Hi, thanks for having me.
No, excited, excited, excited. And reason, folks, I wanted to bring on Jamie on for a stream is, Tempo recently launched, not recently, like literally yesterday launched SaaS templates, which is by far the easiest way to set up payments, auth, a DB with your favorite frameworks, Next.js, Vite, and just focus on your product. You don't have to waste tokens telling AI, build me payments, fix this, fix that. All you have to do is focus on your product. And one of the core providers that we used and I pushed for was Convex. And personally, as a developer, I've been a big user of Convex, and I'm excited for non-technical people to build amazing applications using Convex. So Jamie, I think maybe let's start with a little intro with you. I think your background is very interesting. Knowing your background and why you built and how you built Convex makes sense now for me. I would love for the users to know, a little bit about you, your background, and what Convex is.
Cool. Yeah. So my background is I'm kind of a startup junkie. I built a lot of startups between like my first one I built a freshman year in my dorm room, and it was kind of the web was first. This is how old I am. The web was first blowing up, and then was a web developer and kind of a startup junkie for like 15 years. And through that experience, like I kind of built a lot of different apps, mostly web apps, some mobile apps, like a lot of different ways, and just had a lot of pain about like how to make full stack apps and deal with full stack state and problems like that. And then I worked at Dropbox for about 7 or 8 years, kind of building databases and infrastructure systems with my co-founders, and just learned a lot about like how to do stuff at scale and how to make like hundreds or thousands of engineers like be able to keep momentum moving forward on top of backends and stuff like that. And so Convex is kind of like almost us combining those two experiences. It's like all the experience about building a million apps a million different ways and feeling what works and what doesn't, and then trying to combine that with his expertise on like running stuff really well. And so that's kind of my background that brought me to Convex and to kind of take this on as a new platform to build for developers.
I see. And so, if you were to explain to a 5-year-old, um, okay, 5-year-old is a little too young, maybe 12 or 15,
Okay.
no tech experience, what is Convex? And after that, I really want to get into when people should use Convex, because I've explained to you myself that there are reasons why I pick Convex as my main database. But it's more than that, right? It's more than a database. But like, yeah, I would love to, especially for the non-technical people watching who may know of like Supabase or Neon or these other like, database providers, like what does Convex do? What is Convex? And maybe leading to that, what are some great reasons I should use Convex over everything else?
Yeah, so I mean, Convex at core is a new kind of database, but it's a new kind of database that makes it really easy to build backends. And so it includes a few other things with it, like storage and auth and background jobs and crons and stuff like that. Some of these other things you need to like run more things on the server than just getting your data, which many apps run into. So what it is this new kind of database and a few of these other supporting functions, but they're kind of designed in a way that really the goal is just make it really fun and easy to do solve backend engineering problems. And so, the world's changing a lot now, but it just used to be that like you would have to pick a database, and then you have to pick a place to run your server functions, and then you have to pick a cache, and then you have to manage a queue, and there were all these different systems you had to glue together on the back end, and all this configuration you had to do to get it all hooked up. And so web development has just come so far in the last 15 years that developers have a lot higher expectations about the APIs they use. And so Convex is kind of a new API. It's a new system to let kind of like product obsessed developers who are just trying to get a product done able to build whole apps, including all the backend parts, in a way that's easy and productive and fun. So yeah, that's kind of what it is in a nutshell. It's you could think of it as similar to something like Firebase, right? It has a similar aspiration to solve all the backend problems for you.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, there are some things without, getting too technical. There are some things where Convex extremely shines at, in my opinion. One of the things is I love that it's real time by default, right? I think real time. I definitely think we're entering an era where the expectation is the application has to be fast, right? And one of those things is, I know we could do optimistic updates and like make it look fast, but I really do love the real-time functionality in Convex that everything is real-time by default. So saying that, like, what are maybe some like applications or products that you can think of where Convex is almost necessary to use?
Well, to your point, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think increasingly almost every application is starting to have these expectations, but the classical applications where Convex's automatic real-time stuff is really beneficial are things like chat applications and stuff like that. Obviously, with AI chat we have these days, there's suddenly a lot of those around,
Mhm.
things like games and stuff like that. A lot of times, these are the places maybe 6 or 7 years ago where someone would say, "Well, we need real time for this," and then you do the work to wire it
Yeah.
up. And I think that as time has gone on, we've started to have an expectation that like kind of everything works that way. Like, why should I have to refresh my web page to get updated the app, right? Like, why
Yeah.
why is that up to me? Why don't you just show me new information if there's new information, right? So I think that now it's starting to be that I would say non-real-time apps are starting to become the exception rather than the rule. And more apps, users just expect I shouldn't have to like refresh anything. Like, just you're always going to show me whatever the right information is. So it's a little bit of like an answering your question, but also maybe like saying I think increasingly most apps are benefiting from this, not just the classic chat app kind of experiences.
No, I definitely makes sense. There is, I think, that eureka moment when you like create a chat app using Convex, because there's a lot that you have to deal with when it's not Convex. I tried building one the old-fashioned way, just like spinning up my own Postgres DB, and it's there's quite a lot you have to think of, right? And there's a quite a lot of I spoke with Tom a little bit. There's quite a lot of engineering that you guys do. So, and I think we're entering the era where, for the dev purists who love the game, who love to code, a lot of people don't care anymore. A lot of these young guys, Jamie and gals, they just want to build. They don't really care about the complexity. I think that's why tools like Convex make sense for a platform like Tempo. I guess one of the things, Jamie, I wanted to ask you are, let's say someone is going to be using Tempo after watching this, and they're going to be using the Convex SaaS template. What are some like starter projects that they should build to kind of get a feel of how the platform works and where the platform is amazing? Because I know, like you mentioned, games and stuff, and maybe to test that might be out of that may be a little too difficult, but like just something simple that I could build. What are some recommendations you would have for folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's never a bad idea to like start with a chat app, and then now that we are, because of the kind of apps people are excited to build these days, including me, like finding ways to enrich that with some AI is really cool. Is finding ways to thread that in. So, for example, instead of it just being you and I talking to each other, it's possibly you and I talking to each other and a little running summary of the conversation we had, right? That like an LLM is providing. So I think for many developers, even ones just kind of starting out in their journey, like if finding ways to integrate AI early is a really good idea. And yeah, I see the suggestion about Vercel AI SDK. Absolutely, that's a great SDK. So um, yeah, that would be one suggestion is like start with something simple like a chat app, and rather than say, yeah, you could build a to-do app and you could build a CRM kind of app and you could build a journal your thoughts. There's a lot of things you could do, but rather than go really horizontal like that, I actually think if you start with just one or two simple apps, but then you try to enrich them with more interesting kind of capabilities, especially AI centric capabilities. That's a really common path developers are taking these days. And Convex's ability to kind of run background jobs and then use this reactive, real time way of working, as you've been talking about, Mike, is that combination makes it really easy to make AI stuff because as you're talking to the LLMs in the background, your app just automatically updates as you get answers back from the from the AI. So that would be my recommendation. Just start with something simple and then like just challenge yourself to add a few features to it that have a little bit more moving parts. I think that'll be more enriching than building 14 versions of the same demo apps everybody makes.
Yeah, the classic. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The to-do list app does have a special place in my heart, especially
Yeah.
when I'm testing out a new framework that I don't know. Something about, and I think with Convex, oh man, is that real-time functionality? Does it really come clutch during those times? Now, I know I'll start sharing screen in a bit and show how setting up Tempo and Convex works. I guess, Jamie, a question for you is where do you see Convex going in terms of this landscape of AI development, right? Because I think we're starting to enter an era where I'm sure Convex was developer first and focused on developers, and I'm sure still much focused on developers. But now you got to think about the AI and like what are those conversations happening within the teams? How are, I know you guys think about developer experience a lot. Is AI experience something you guys are thinking about? And what are some of the plans that you guys have in that realm?
Yeah, so we have this project we spun up a while ago. We were doing it quietly for fair amount of last year, and then we started doing it in public in the last couple of months. And so there's this project, Convex Evals, that's basically like us looking at the way our API works. And basically, like what we've done is we've created a whole suite about common like full stack tasks that people want to do and we just score how well LLMs generate these things using Convex's APIs, and then we track over time making progress on that. Excuse me, on that stuff, because like for example, especially now with MCP and stuff like that, there's the ability to provide better context and better hinting and better prompts, contextual information, cursor rules, and stuff like that. It actually significantly improves the ability to make full stack apps we using AI. Um, and it also too, if you're a new platform like Convex, it's trying to provide even better APIs for developers and the AI they're working with to be successful. The other thing it can do is it can inform what our next generation of APIs look like. So when we think about let's make the next version of Convex even better, we shouldn't just make that a process about like, well, like what's our intuition or even what's our intuition and how do developers like it. It should also be what's our intuition, how do developers like it, and how well do LLMs work with it. And that has to be, in my opinion, a part of how you build now if you want to make products like Tempo just work better and better and better over time. So an ongoing effort that we're spending a lot of time on. My co-founder Sujay is spending a ton of time on that. And several other people on our team are as well.
I
So
love that. I love that. Now you mentioned this phrase that everyone's talking about. Not a lot of people know what it means, but what is MCP? What is that jargon that everyone's excited about now?
yeah, well, so a little bit of background on it in some ways is that like you could view the AI future as the models are just going to get so good that they will grow down toward all the tools. And we don't really need to improve any tools. LLMs are going to do everything, right? And I think that what's emerging is not quite that, is the LMs are pretty good at what they're good at, but we're starting to see with models like 3.7 and GPT 4 or 5 the models are about as good as they're, they might get a little better, but
Yeah.
like a lot of what needs to happen now is we need to make all of our tools and systems change to work better with AI. And so one of the challenges we run into is like if we take an LLM like GPT and it's working with something new, like maybe there's a new version of React or something. And so it may be that like GPT only has information up until like 9 months ago when it was
Yeah.
created. That new version of React didn't exist, And so there's all kinds of needs to be able to like educate the LLM and empower the LLM to operate on new systems now that are changing dynamically, that aren't part of its training set. And MCP is one of these things where it's a way for, let's say, Cursor or Tempo or something to be able to chat with a system like Convex and ask questions, or an agent inside of Tempo could actually chat with the systems it relies on, like Supabase or Convex or Clerk, and ask questions about the data, or ask questions about the version of the API that's being used or whatever. And that way, the LLMs can be even more successful, even if like these technologies are evolving rapidly. Like we're no longer just stuck with whatever the LLMs were built on. We can keep improving the LLMs over time. So MCP is just one way to do that, basically. Yeah,
Makes sense. So it's like it's basically a better way for tools to be understood by the LLM instead of expecting the LLM to know from scratch or to be trained on that data. um, this MCP protocol allows for these tools to be able to not only just know about them but to use them as well. Because I did a little experimenting, and it's been interesting, and definitely taking a look at that for the tempo side of things. So, and I've seen the eval stuff, by the way. I act like I don't know, but that's for the user. I keep close eyes on what Convex is up to.
I,
There's actually a few questions I want, and these are for you. How would you compare Convex over Supabase and Firebase? This is actually a great question for Jamie.
yeah. So Convex is a new like take on Firebase that I would say completely internalizes the lessons from React. And so what that means is that there's expectations have risen since Firebase came out, and some of those expectations are developers just really like working with code. They don't want configuration languages. They don't want another special syntax to learn to talk to the database. They just want to use, they want their backend to feel like the front end, to be honest, like in that they're managing state the same way. And so that both means that you're just solving all your problems with JavaScript code or TypeScript code if you're writing code, is one thing. But the other thing too is that in React, if any data changes, the whole app automatically updates. You don't ever have to think, "Am I seeing the latest state in my app?" You are. React does that for you, right? And so, but backends kind of don't, or they only did in really limited, like you were talking about earlier, Mike. Like real time was this thing that was hard to achieve and you had to opt into. But React, when React came out, all of a sudden developers got addicted to real time because it's a great way to develop. It's, you don't have to think about getting data updates to the right places in your app. React takes care of all of it for you. And so Convex is like really a new design for a way to do backend engineering that says, hey, what if like React extended kind of all the way into the backend, and like the backend just felt like part of your React project, basically. And so that means, to get a little more specific about their question, the real time in Convex is everywhere and automatic. You don't have to do anything to achieve it, just like with React. And so that's one of the big changes. And then the solving everything in code, with there's no ACL language for permissions. There's no schema definition using Postgres's create table. There's all these systems behind backends, if folks haven't used this before, that like you don't have to just learn type JavaScript or TypeScript. You also have to learn all these other systems, like how does the database work and what's the language to talk to it and stuff like that. So Convex makes it so your whole world feels like, if you're learning how to make products, you're learning how to use front end frameworks and web frameworks. Convex can feel very intuitive to you because it's designed to feel like an extension of all of that stuff. So yeah, hopefully that is a decent summary about what's different about it.
No, that was great. That was great. I actually learned a bit as well myself. Um, that was a great question. Just reading through. Glad you can join us. Big fan of Tempo. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I saw the what's an LLM. I mean, I can answer that real quick for folks that are, yeah,
It's
sorry. I know there's a lot of jargon in some of the stuff maybe we're talking about, but an LLM is a large language model. It's the kind of AI that ChatGPT represents, where you talk to it using English, and it talks back to you using English or a different language, right? But a natural language, a human language. So that's what a large language model is. Sorry for glossing over that term without explaining what we were talking about.
It's definitely it's definitely a fast moving world, and these terms definitely I can understand for people can just be confusing. One thing I do want to say again, Tempo. If you haven't checked this out, Tempo.new. We have launched SaaS templates, which is basically you can set up payments authentication in literally just a few minutes. You won't burn any tokens. There is some setup that you have to do, but that setup is well worth it. And I'm super excited for that. Jamie, before I start sharing my screen, are there any last thoughts, anything you'd like to share?
No, yeah, we're just very excited about this because, and we've been chatting a lot with the Tempo team. I think that both the Convex team and the Tempo team actually are what we're pretty excited about. Is just like this is just beginning. We can actually make a lot of things even a lot smoother than they are right now, and even more automatic for app builders. And were chatting about some of Mike and I were chatting about some of those things before the stream started. So yeah, no, we're very excited, but also too this very concrete things that we're excited to go do in the next few weeks, let alone few months, that will make all this feel even better very soon. So yeah, that's my only headspace right now, is just pretty pumped about this.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to share my screen and show off Tempo a little bit, and I'm going to show actually a quick little project I was working on while we were on stream. So I didn't even have the ability to focus fully, but this is what I have. So this is Tempo if you're not used to it. Tempo is unique in a sense where it's not just you talking to a chatbot. You can right there. We have 3.7 Gemini plus 3.7, meaning you can search the web, and this makes it cool for those SDKs or those APIs that you want to use that are sort of very new that the LLMs might not be trained on. And then we have Claude 3.5 because 3.7 is going through a lot of trouble right now on the Anthropic side. What's cool is, Jamie, the reason why I asked you for a project is because I wanted to just build a quick one while you were talking. And the quick one that I built, actually, I need to share my entire screen because I want to show two tabs. Allow, and can I share more than, yeah, share the entire screen. I'm going to minimize this here, and if I go, I have two separate accounts. I'm going to go to messages here. Mind you, these are just a few prompts. And this is what happens by default with Convex. It's real time, right? And this is what I love with Convex. With any other provider, it takes a second to set this up. This was literally a few prompts. And this you get this out the box when you use something like Tempo with Convex. Now I'm going to share my screen back to the browser because I had some important work URLs showing. So I kind of want to give a quick flow of how Tempo works, right? So you go to tempo.new, you create your account, you have the option to generate an app. We are working on connecting GitHub repos so people can load in their projects, load in their templates. Something that I'm actually thinking about working on is people launch their own templates. Like I would love for the Convex team, if I've seen some of the templates you guys have built. I would love for the Convex team to have their templates on Tempo, and people can just one click boot it up and deploy their production ASAP. So that's really something I'm excited about. I see backend setup is key, making that easier, and Plainlist will bring a lot of new users to DB platform. I wonder if Convex has edge functions like Supabase does. They do. They're just called server functions, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep,
Jamie.
yep.
Yep,
And
they
yeah,
do.
they're automatically deployed as you develop your app. It's pretty smooth. So yeah, we've got server functions that I'm obviously a biased party, but I think they're pretty slick.
And I like the fact that it's just TypeScript, right? So for the
Mhm.
devs out there, it's TypeScript. Me and Dino, we've had some problems, but as a developer, you got to do what you got to do. So I'll share my screen. Oh, am I sharing my screen? Okay, perfect. Yeah. So you could click generate an app, and we have like this beautiful selection part. I don't know what you call it, but I can select between frameworks, but right now, really, I just want pure React and I want Clerk and Convex. I can choose to set up payments with Stripe. I could do Polar as well, but I'll just do Stripe. And the cool thing that we do is if you don't want any payments, you just want to build a fun app with no payments, you don't want to worry about that. You could just select none and go about your day. I'm going to select Stripe, and we have these cool learn more buttons over here. And the reason why I say learn more button is cool is because we have detailed docs, not complete for some of the templates, but for the convex ones, rest assured there's a full video me showing you how to set up your project. And once you set up your project, Josh, let me know if I should show people how to set up a project. But once you set up your project, I'm just going to show you how the AI works, right? Because I think it's really powerful to understand what makes Tempo different. And this is what makes Tempo different. What makes Tempo different is this is an app that the software we're building is for production. Meaning when you're building an application, it's not just prompting um, in the chat up, right? There's a lot of things you have to consider. There's a lot of things you have to think about. And one of the things that we really focus on is collaboration as well. Maybe there's multiple parties, building, working towards this application. Even Jamie said he had co-founders when he was working on Convex. And that's one of the things that we think about with Tempo. So this is a platform where you can collaborate on the same project. And there's three sections that I love about Tempo. There's a PRD, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. That's product required. I don't even know what the the acronym stands for, but I know it's your product plan, it's your product roadmap, right? And this is generated for you. And not only is it generated for you, we also generate a user flow mermaid diagram because you need to think about these things when developing an application. Now, if you're developing a weekend app and you're just chilling and you don't really want to bother yourself, we have the beautiful chat for you that can do all the work that you needed to do. But for those who are looking to build serious applications, something like the PRD is very, very powerful. So one of the things that happens is that the AI agent will generate the PRD, will draw out your user flow, and then you can add visual context. If there's drawings or diagrams that you want to add, you can give it that context. And in terms of context, Convex, there are two things we do. We load up the template and we run Convex Connect. Basically, we synchronize your application with Convex. The reason why this is necessary, like Jamie said, whenever you deploy what people know as edge functions on Supabase, server functions on Convex, we have to tell Convex, okay, these server functions exist. Make sure our application can work with them. And Tempo takes care of that for you. What's cool though is we have like a failsafe just in case maybe you refresh while it's loading or something happens. You can manually synchronize your project with Convex, right? So really taking care of the user who wants to build. And yeah, that's that you get to have an application like this where in literally just a few prompts, I will have the message tab open here and then I'll message from another site. You can see, and literally as I send, that's all happening real time. This 5 years ago, whatever years ago, was engineering prowess, engineering magic. Now that's all, easily doable with Tempo and Convex. Jamie, anything you'd like to share before maybe I continue on?
No, I you didn't tell me you were going to do that. I think that's a pretty funny trick that you were building this in the background while we were talking.
Yeah, I was just like, I was like, let me see what it is that he think is cool, like to use convicts for. And I think when you said chat up, like I literally just started prompting,
I'm
right?
I'm impressed with your multitasking skills. I would not be able to do that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It comes with practice. And one of the things that's cool about our convex setup is we've actually integrated Clerk as well. So Clerk is responsible for the authentication, and Clerk and Convex do have this seamless. Please don't email my personal email. Clerk and Convex have this seamless. Um, I don't want to say integration, but it works pretty well. Being able to set up auth with Clerk and then Convex with DB. So I've really been enjoying this, and maybe I will push this to production. But Jamie, a quick question I have for you is, what are some pitfalls and I will stop sharing my screen because I want to set up something real quick. What are some pitfalls people should look out for when building with Convex, or what are some things they should be careful for? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. So it's um if you have experience working with other databases, there's probably a few things you have to unlearn a little bit. That's probably the number one pitfall is it's a little different than other things. So what we find is that if you haven't really built a lot of backends before, nothing surprises you that much because often it feels like, isn't this how you always work with backends?
Yeah.
And so, which is great, you know. I think that though, if you have experience with other databases, you're used to like having to check for updates and you're used to having to like there's a lot of you're used to having to manage your own caching, and so like you might grab, like, this is a little bit more on the programmer side, right? But like you might grab a state management library or something to like, check the server every so often to make sure an updated value comes back, and then you set a policy for how long to cache it, and like, and you don't really need all those layers in Convex. So another example of that, again, this is mostly on the programmer side, right? Like if you've written a lot of code before, as opposed to maybe you're making your first couple of apps using, I mean, tools like Tempo it's harder to go wrong in some ways because so many things are handled for you. But if you have more experience working in code, then a lot of React developers are used to like, you know, putting a request for content really high in their component tree and then drilling all the props down into their components because they want to consistently get all the state into their app basically. And Convex automatically handles that for you, so you don't have to do that. You can just kind of put queries attached to individual components wherever they make sense, and Convex kind of automatically makes sure all the updates are pushed at the same time, caching is managed, all this kind of stuff. So I would say the biggest pitfalls are more like there's some stuff you kind of have to unlearn because like Convex will just kind of handle it for you. But you have this muscle. You're really good at working with existing databases, knowing all the tricks, and you just sometimes don't need as many of those tricks. And so that can be a little confusing when you're starting. Is realizing, oh, I really should just do it the simple way, and it will work out in Convex. So yeah,
Jamie, you know one fun thing I want to do, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to tweet this on the Tempo account too. I would love to set something up where I don't know if it's like a joint hackathon or something like that. I would love people to build applications with Tempo and Convex, and I would love to have like maybe you be the judge, and whoever wins or whoever has like some projects, we can, again, we can figure this off even with Wayne um after stream, but I would love to figure something out like that, and then maybe, I will give them some sort of prize, or maybe they could get whatever it is. I would love for people to build with Temple some sort of hackathon where you be one of the judges. Um, and
yeah.
that being said, what are some, like, how would I win a hackathon if I was building with Tempo, and how could I sway the results to be on my end? Like, what are some things what are some projects that would catch your eye?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, yeah, I'd love to do it. That's a great idea. I think it's some of this is going to go back to your question earlier about, excuse me, the kind of apps to lean into. I think what we know now, right, is bringing it back to the human side of the world we're in. Is AI is making it much faster and more seamless to generate applications, which is awesome. And so one of the things I think is very cool about that is, as opposed to just being able to make an app at all, the thing that differentiates good apps from bad apps is design and human considerations, right? It's like we can focus on the, because now it's you did it while we were talking. It's quite easy to make a chat app now, right? So the thing that's going to differentiate apps is really thoughtful design, and usually that design has to do with a real understanding about what is someone trying to get done today, right? And like, what's the most seamless way to, but have them intuit their way through that. And so that's one of my favorite things here. And I don't just mean visual design. I mean like UX design. I mean experience, like experience. Like I'll, you know, you got like part of what I really like about Tempo is that you all have been incredibly thoughtful about what are the workflows here, right? And like, even though Tempo is obviously a highly technical team that is working with AI a lot, what are the workflows here? And how are we going to help the humans be successful? Is a really classic design problem and a software design problem, right? That stuff not only still matters, in some ways, it matters even more now because making code is not as special as it used to be. It's easier. So making that a little bit more concrete, I would say then for apps that are would be in this hypothetical hackathon, I think there's a lot of um, AI. We know AI can generate text, right? We just talked about large language models a little earlier. The challenge that is a really difficult challenge actually is finding ways to use this new capability we have in ways which are like useful and delightful and stuff like that. So it just comes back to product design stuff. So I would say apps that are incorporating AI in a way that's surprisingly pleasing or delightful or successful, you know, to achieve something, are still the things right now that I'm thinking about the most often, and I think a lot of people are thinking about the most often. Right? Is like, how do we use this capability? We've had hackathons in the past where that's kind of the way it went. Like someone just had a great idea about like, if I like there was an app that somebody developed recently that um, you know, you talk to it and it just kind of records everything you're doing, but then creates summaries of like what mood did you seem in on what days and stuff like that. And it was like, that's such a cool idea, right? Is it like it lowered the friction, right? Where I just talk about like what I'm doing and how I'm feeling, what I need to do, and like, and maybe it's a kind of journal where I can go reread it, but now there's this new layer on it that's also like these days were warmer than these days, and like these were the things you said you did, and do you realize that about yourself? Like the days you did these activities, you sounded down, or you sounded like, that's such a cool insight, right? That just has to do with like human nature, and then technology is the tool, right? Technology is not actually the, it's not actually the key thing, right? So yeah, I don't know. That's my nudge on it. If folks were going to think about doing stuff, is thinking about those kinds of problems and how one can approach technology in that very thoughtful, human centric way.
So it seems to me like the more personal the software, the more thought. Like I think I do agree with you. I think design becomes a moat now. How you make people feel becomes a moat now. And I think that's one of the things that, like we think about at Tempo. I'm very like much into design and good design, and we do our best to nudge the AI into great design principles, but I think at the end of the day, it's that human element that matters a lot, and that's why I love Tempo, because we do have that visual editor, and there's a lot of cool Figma style things we're working on where like someone can precisely make things look the way they want them to look. I guess one final question, and I'll share my screen again, Jamie, is what are we going to expect you to build with Tempo and Convex?
Oh yeah. Well, I was telling you earlier, just later today, I'm gonna spin it up and play with it a little bit. I normally start with like, I'll start with something I know and then I'll push it, right? So like you, I think you mentioned like a to-do app or whatever is what you always
Yeah.
start with. So I in fact, when I was working on my template earlier, this time I decided to do like a Reddit clone. Like I want to start with like
Nice.
upvote, downvote posts, right? It's just like a forum where I can upvote and downvote posts. And that was sort of my first starting point. And then when I think about that, then I'll mix some other things into it, right? Like, okay, now I want to track and display like the people with the best upvote downvote ratio over time. I want them to maybe automatically have some kind of aura on their names or something that indicate that they're posters with unusually good like content or whatever. And so just adding layers to stuff, like let's start with something basic to give me my footing, to give me confidence. Like, oh, I did one thing. I did my
Yeah.
first step.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. And then now the second step is like, how would I zag now on like a variation on this that makes it more interesting? And how does that journey go with Tempo and Convex together to like evolve an idea and enrich it, over time? You were mentioning design. Yeah, I'll say I agree with that statement completely. Like in some respects, like even though Convex is new and folks, and there's some new things you have to learn to work with it, can sometimes be a challenge. the one thing we do get back pretty consistently is that Convex just has the best DX, right, of all of these systems, and that's the
No,
bonus.
I agree.
Yeah,
And
I was
that's
just gonna say
interesting. You
that's the
said a
most
Reddit
positive
clone.
praise like we can get because like I think that the thing we consider is like we're just the back end team that's like obsessed with design. Like I think design is so important because it's all about what the human needs, and isn't that what all this stuff is for at the end of the day? So I was just very excited when you talked about how important design is to you, and I can see that in your product in Tempo. It's really thoughtfully designed. So yeah.
It is. And I guess like, like going on this, like what are some like tips you'd give someone to get good at design? Like I think there's like a certain like I think you have to go through a process to develop like a taste for these things. Like what do you like what is a process or like some sort of, what how can people develop that?
I I think that um, and you can come up with a digital equivalent of this if that works for you. But I'll start by just saying like an analog thing to represent the process, right? So like there's I think there's a lot you can learn from creative endeavors in general. Like for example, movies, right? And movies have like storyboards and stuff like that, right? So like you could start with just like a whiteboard or a digital whiteboard if you want, but sometimes actually putting the computer away because the computer tempts you to make stuff already. And right now you just want to like think about it. And sometimes like a tactile surface helps with that. So like a whiteboard to just talk of like just kind of like that diagram you ended up with in Mermaid. It's like who
Yeah.
is the person? What are they trying to do today? Where do they start? Right? What do they care about right now? What don't they care about right now? And then all the stuff they don't care about, get out of the way or hide it in a settings menu or and try to think of your product as telling a story, right? Now it might be a choose your own adventure story because it's not linear. They could do this or they could do that, but it's still a story and it deserves that much thought about what does each step take, right? What is it that how's the clearest way to meet them where they're at and just give them the clearest decision or information to. And I think that sometimes not having your hands on the keyboard when you do that because that can tempt you to start making it already. I'm not saying make a big design doc. I just mean do your daydreaming a little bit on like in an hour, on somewhere, because I think it'll give you a more ambitious thing to go try to build. And if you go try to build it, sometimes you might make it minimal because it's easy to build simple things as opposed to having this vision you can't wait to make come true because you challenged yourself to make something great before you were responsible for making it, if that makes sense. As soon as you're
Mhm.
responsible for making it, it's easy to like accidentally lower your ambition or your standards. So yeah, make the ambition big, and then if you want to test whether it's real or not, I think the best way to do that is explain it to someone, right? And have them go like, but then how would I, you go, oh yeah, when you're pointing at the whiteboard or whatever, it's like, oh, you wouldn't know that, would you? I assumed you would already know that you needed that, but you're right, I didn't tell you you needed that. So those are, I think those exercises are really valuable, and it doesn't have to be a detailed design doc. It doesn't have to meet a spec. It just has to get your brain as understanding the breadth of the problem, and then getting excited about taking on a level of ambition that like is inspiring to you and has the capability to make a differentiated product instead of just making yet another standard to do app, which it's cool. But since we now know you can make 30,000 of them in 6 seconds, I'm not sure what that's going to do for you in the long run. You need something a little bit more specialized than that, probably.
No, I definitely agree with like going back to first principles and really just thinking and dreaming, right? Like one of the things like I think that we've lost is like in the ship fast mentality. And believe me, like and tempo, we ship incredibly fast, but I think there needs to be um this thought behind user experience, how users going to use like SaaS templates we probably could have launched maybe 2 weeks ago, but there were certain things we thought about and we're like there's no way we can allow users to go through this, right? um and I think it's important. And yeah, shout out to TR, looking at it like products that inspire you. I think one thing that I do, Jamie, I don't know if you do this, is I look at products that inspire like I look if I look at a product and I wish I made it, that's how I know it's good. Like I wish I
Yeah.
was like, I wish this was me, right? Eh,
When we were starting Convex, the founders like did an exercise where like we just listed the sort of like we did it for two things. We did for products and we also did for brands actually because they're a little different, right? And it's like this represents this aesthetic for these reasons, and that's why it matters in one case. And then like this is like a quintessential product. It represents exactly what it should be for these reasons, and this is why I feel that way. And we kind of all did those exercises independently to like bring all those ideas together, and then like get each other excited about like some kind of shared vision for design thinking. And so yeah, I definitely agree that like if you think about like what are the things I use or I experience or if that have an impression on me, that I feel like, wow, that's so perfectly done, like make that explicit, write it down, and then yeah, maybe try take a little time and try to understand why. Like why did it have that impact on you? And then how can you start to embody that kind of design aesthetic or sensibility or whatever in what you're making. So I agree, that's a great exercise.
No, I appreciate that. And I just want to show you some copy changes I made again while we were chatting. Let me know if this is something that would win me a hackathon. Um, Josh, if you could share the screen. Uh, yeah, Jamie, I don't know how you feel about this right here. I told Tempo to make it so that I can win a hackathon by a guy named Jamie, and this is what it wrote. So,
Well, I
uh,
know I'm not sure that would
yeah, and
the
like
judges.
again, I know we're close to time, but I just wanted to show people. Jamie said he wanted to build a Reddit clone, so I booted up, uh, a Convex project, and it started to build out some of my components. I have one visually here. This is going to be my main feed. And one tip I'll give everyone is this little brain right here. If you click it, you activate reasoning, and when you have reasoning on, it really like the results are magnificent. And I just started because he said he wanted to build a Reddit clone, but again, this is with one prompt, and I know a lot of you are used to like clean UI and all that stuff anyway. The reason why it's flashy because it's shipping. I see another component here. I know a lot of you are used to like UI and stuff, but the cool part is this has a DB built in. This has payments built in. This has auth built in. So you can continue to prompt this application however you please. And with errors, if you have an error here, it says convex error. Easy way to fix this, you click sync. It starts to sync my convex functions. You're going to see that in a second. Right there. Bunch of nerd stuff. And then in a short while, if I click restart here, and we're good to go. It's loading up now. So this is why, again, I'm a big fan of Tempo. This is why I shield Tempo. Well, I work here, obviously, but it's easy to build applications like this with, again, I just want to show this off because it literally took me 2 minutes to build something where this interactivity is possible out the gate. And yeah, I highly encourage everyone check out tempo.new. Check out the Convex template. We do have tutorials. I literally finished shooting a couple of them. I'll just share my screen real quick just to show everybody where you would find those. Did I close my browser? Um, Give me 1 second. Um, Let me tempo.new. Let me just share my screen again. I just want to show everybody how easy it is to set up these templates. Um, you go to tempo.new, log in, and then I have a bunch of projects, but create project, generate an app, pick clerk and convex. Do you want Stripe? Do you want Polar? Up to you. And then when you click the learn more button, we have literally a step-by-step video walking you through the entire process. And we're going to be working with the Convex team to make this even simpler. But if you compare the amount of tokens you would burn building all this from scratch versus having this done for you out the gate, I think this makes Tempo the best platform to use. And I'm super excited for what we have cooking with Convex. Jamie, thank you so much again. I really do appreciate you for your
Yeah,
time. I know you're busy. It means a
thank
lot.
you. Thank you. This is great. This is a lot of fun.
Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you guys. Again, make sure to check out tempo.new. Make sure to check out the Convex template that we have. It's super easy to set up. Literally click the learn more button. Make sure to, again, follow Convex, join their Discord. If you have any other questions, you can ask them. You can ask us. We're happy to help. AGP says, how can I integrate this into my already existing made website on Tempo? AJP, you can either build it again using the templates, and I would suggest that because the templates have already fixed a lot of the pain points you may have, but you can also just prompt the AI that you want to run Convex, right? But I think the template just makes a lot sense. So hope that helps. Thank you, everybody. We're getting a lot of thank you, guys. Thank you, Jamie. We really appreciate you all. I guess we'll call that a stream. And for those of you watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. Again, Jamie, thank you so much.
All right, thanks.